What up, YouTube? It's your boy Penny LS1 checking in. Part 2, iBooster install on the G-Body. Yes, I said iBooster. We are putting electric brakes on a 1986 Monte Carlo SS, aka G-Body Monte Carlo, aka MiniSSkirt. So if you haven't watched part 1, I'll put a link up here in the card for part 1 and also down in the description box below. Go check out part 1 where I explain what the iBooster is, and I actually walk through how to install it on the G-Body and the necessary steps. This kit will be available soon, so just stay tuned for that. But today I'm working on the hard lines running off the proportioning valve down the frame where I need to join them to the rear line that's going to the back of the car, and also the front hard lines that's running to the left and right front calipers. I've already bent up the rear line off the proportioning valve, so I'll show you that, and then I'll get under the car. I do have it jacked up. I'll get under the car and show you the fittings that I'm using to join all this together. So let me turn you around and show you what we're working with. So I went ahead and bent. I got the final bend on this. So it's gonna be on the rail like this. Oh, well, actually I think I gotta cut it. That's right. I marked it to cut just a tad bit shorter. Let me make sure I got it on that mark. Yep. From the proportioning valve. And then I'll do the front line. But this one actually turned out pretty good for it to be my first one. Bending up. I was gonna go with stainless steel flex line, but I figure let's do hard lines to prevent as much flexing as we can, and you know, if any, but also something that I've been wanting to tackle and challenge myself to do. So we got it cut out. Let's deburr. Let me run some air in it real quick. Okay, so what I was doing was I was making sure this is the final length that I need. Before I cut it, I stuck it in here with the tube nut on to make sure I had enough length to get this in where it needs to stop with the nut on it. That way I can get the proper flare. So I did that first. So it's just perfect where I need it to be. So yep, it's actually perfect. T-mill. See if we got it right. Yeah. Voila. So that's the bottom one, and this the top one. See that? Not bad at all. Okay, so y'all can see I've got one line mocked up. I'm gonna make a couple of modifications to this line. This is the rear hard line coming off of the bottom of the proportioning valve. I'll get under the car in a minute to show you exactly where and how it's connected to the frame rail. This is the rear line, like I said, so this is going all the way to the back. But I basically converted the line that goes into the stock prop valve on the frame that runs to the rear. I cut it, and like I was showing y'all on the table over there, I made it a 4AN fitting. So this line goes down to that, and with an adapter that converts that 4AN back to a 3/8 24 double flare. So, but I'll get under there in a second and show you what I'm talking about. But my goal was to try to mimic the shape of that fender liner, and I came short right there. That was supposed to be a 45 instead of a drop 90. It's kind of close to the control arm. So I'm going to use this as a template. I'll take it off. I'm going to mark it before I take it off so I can know where to bend. Instead of making that a 90, we'll make that a 45, and then we'll continue on down. So I'm basically going to redo this line, and then I'll go ahead and bend up the front line as well, and we'll get everything buttoned up. And that way I can take the master cylinder off. We'll go ahead and bench bleed it over there on the table, clamp it into that vise. So let me crawl under there, show you the how I got it connected. All right, so if y'all can see that fitting right there, this big thick line running to the rear, that's a 1/4 inch line. That's part of the factory rear brake line. So like I said, I cut off the original flare nut fitting and I put on a AN tube nut, and then the adapter that's in the middle, it's a 4AN adapter that adapts it back to a 3/8 24 double flare, and that line is running down from up top from the master cylinder, and then I got it clamped to the frame. So that brass piece you see, that is just a double flare T fitting. Those two lines that's running to it is the front calipers, and then I just need to make the front line from the master cylinder, and we'll screw that in right there on the back side. So that's what I'm using as far as adapters to get these lines to join together. All right, so like I said, I'm getting ready to redo this brake line best I can and make, instead of this being a 90, we're gonna try to make it a 45, or I could probably just go straight right here, bend it 45. We'll figure it out. So I don't need this drop. This was too low. I needed to go straight like that. So I got my coil. I've already straightened it up using this tool right here. This one is just for 3/16. You just basically run it through like that to get your coil straight. This is about the length that I need, and then I'll cut it right here, and I have plenty left over to do the front hard line. So let's get this cut. I'm gonna put y'all on time lapse, and we're gonna start bending.
Can't believe this shit, man.
DJ Graham.
Fat girl is
Alright, I just wanted to cut y'all on real quick. I did completely redo that rear line. So now we got much clearance off of the control arm. So I'm getting ready to go ahead and do the second one, the front, and I'll cut y'all back on once I pull this master cylinder off, or get ready to pull it off, and we'll go ahead and start the bench bleed. Alright, so we got both lines in. Good clearance above the control arm, away from the steering shaft. So let me go underneath, and I'm going to show you how I got everything connected. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to bolt the brackets to the frame, but I think it's pretty solid, so we should be okay for now for this test. And then I'm going to run up to the store and get some brake fluid so I can go ahead and bench bleed the master cylinder, and then put it back on and check for leaks and all the new lines, and then we can start bleeding the system. So let me get up under here real quick. All right, so if you can see, I've got everything connected. The only issue I'm having is with this brass fitting here. It's clocked because of this line coming from the front. Now that I can't get the bolt to go straight into the frame to mount it, but it's pretty solid. So we'll see how that turns out, see if I have any issues with that. But as far as this one go, I'm gonna use this hole right here with that strap I had on and just try and tie that down like that. But you can see what I'm talking about on this bolt right here. I won't be able to get that bolt to go in straight, and I can't turn it because the way I got this. So we'll figure it out later. But I'm finna go ahead and put some fluid in the master cylinder on the bench and bleed that, and then we'll put it back on the car and check for leaks. And if we're good on leaks, we'll go ahead and start bleeding the brakes from the rear. Cut y'all back on in a second. All right, so we're set up to bleed the master cylinder. I'm gonna attempt to bleed this with the prop valve on it, simply because once you put this on the car, I have to have some plugs in here. Then I gotta put this on, I gotta have plugs in here. So you're gonna get some drippage either way. So I'd rather just put plugs in here and only have to remove the plugs once to try to connect the lines on the car to this. So we're gonna bench bleed it with the prop valve on it. If I'm wrong, y'all tell me. Two ways that you could bleed it. This is the traditional way. I've done this before. You get decent results as long as you've got long enough tubes. Get clear tubes so that you can actually see the fluid. The way I've done it in the past is with this syringe right here. This, believe it or not, is actually a better way to bleed it. And I could still use this. Since I got these tubes, I can put a bucket right here, because all I did was I filled it up with fluid. Well, I used this to syringe some fluid. I put half fluid in here, but then you stick this down there into the hole, and then you just push the fluid in, and it pushes out all the air. You do that a couple of times until you see no bubbles, and then you can cycle the piston in the master cylinder and double check it. That's how I did it the last time, so we'll do it this way for the sake of the video, and then we'll go from there. But like I said, I'm gonna try to do this with the proportional valve attached to it. If I run into problems, I'll take it off. I do have plugs if I need to plug these while I'm moving it onto the car, so I don't drip fluid all into the engine bay. So let's top it off. What do I got? I bought a 32 ounce and a 12 ounce. I should have just got two 32 ounces, but 12 ounce because this is more than 12 ounces. So let's go with the big bottle first, and then get something to puncture a hole in here, and then we'll go from there. See if I can't do this without wasting. Let's do the small one first. So we're gonna fill this up just past so that the hose is submerged, so we're not pulling any air. And I'm gonna use this extension here to push the piston instead of a screwdriver. I believe they do make an actual tool for this. It has a screwdriver handle, but it has a ball peen tip so that it doesn't scratch. Just make sure you got your vise tight enough, and make sure that this thing is level so that you don't have any air, obviously, trapped into the piston area, whatever they call that. So let's see if we can get fluid out of here. So far there's no leaks coming out. Crush washers are in here for these adapters. I got these flare nut fittings tight. I got these tight as well. There's a plug in this center, which is the front output. So I'm using this front output and this rear output. I plugged this one. So let's give it a go to make sure I have no leaks, and then we'll get the getting. Let's see. Okay. Am I doing this right? Yeah, I'm doing it right. Oh, there's plenty of air in there. I wish this vise was mounted down, but it's not. Just have to make do with what we got. And this is hard to push like this. Might have to get my screwdriver. Matter of fact, let me put some fluid in here as well. Yeah, because I'm doing it one at a time. It really don't matter. I can do them both. I'm tripping, y'all. Yeah, let me do, because I keep hearing the air. So where the air coming from? I forgot, even though these are separate chambers, I can bleed it at the same time. I'm thinking about bleeding the actual brakes. Okay. All right. There we go. So let's get this, ain't that thing hurt my hand. I need something to put on the edge of that, because I guess using a screwdriver might be the best option. So, yeah, this might work out with bleeding the prop valve at the same time. Okay, well, let me get this bled out. I'm gonna put you on time lapse. I'll cut you back on when I don't have any more bubbles coming out that mud. Okay, wow, well that was super easy using a vise. I will say, last time I did this, I did not use a vise, therefore I did not have this level. That's why I had a hard time getting all the air bubbles out, and I used the syringe method. Like, I'm poking on the wrong hole. But look at this, there's no, y'all see that? You can't even see it because it's straight fluid, there's no air bubbles. So I've got the master cylinder bled as well as the proportion valve. So we're good to go, and I got no leaks on these crush washers or any other fittings. Let me double check with my hand. I didn't see anything dripping. Uh-oh, felt some wet right there. I probably forgot to wipe it off though, but let's double check these fittings. Make sure they're dry before I put it in the car. That way I won't have to mess with these. Hopefully won't have to tighten them up anymore. They already be tight. So dry there, dry there, dry, and then let's push it to see if anything builds back up. I don't see anything, but let's still dry. Still dry. Still dry. All right, well, we good here. My O-rings are seated, I think. Let me wipe this off just to make sure. Because there's O-rings on these reservoirs as well as clamps. So I just want to make sure we ain't got no fluid leaking. Because if you don't see it, you might not feel it, but you'll notice it once the paint starts to bubble away. I think we're good. I think we're good. Okay. All right. Well, let me put the caps back on each reservoir. I'm gonna get this hose pulled off and put the plugs in, and that way I can transfer it over to the car and mount it back up. Let me find my plugs. I think I put them back in the bag. These little plugs right here. They're 3/8 24, and it's a male inverted flare. So as I pull this off, fluid's gonna rush out of there. So I'm gonna try to plug it as quick as I can. So we're gonna plug it up with this. And then we can put the lid on, top it off with fluid, top it off fluid, hold on. All right, so I've got it reinstalled. See, I got my tiles down. I put my tape back on my inner fender. If there is fluid in the system, I got the brake lines connected to the master cylinder. I'm gonna let this gravity bleed for a little bit to double check the fittings underneath the car to make sure they're not leaking with no pressure. And then I'll pressurize the system and check it again before I start the bleeding process. So, but we got some fluid in there. I don't know how much you can see that. Yeah, you can see it. So we got fluid in the reservoirs. I've got everything tightened. I'm sitting here now just checking for wetness. Got my crush washers on here. Got these fittings. It looks like we're dry. So we're gonna keep checking this for the next probably 30 minutes or so. I'm gonna let this drip, gravity bleed down, and then I'll come back and check it again. Then we'll start the bleeding process. But we might be good to go. Hopefully we are. And then I'll use my pressure bleeder and we'll get this bled out. So we'll check back in. For y'all, it's gonna be a few minutes. Well, for y'all, it's gonna be a few seconds. For me, it's gonna be about 30 minutes or so. All right, y'all. Well, I done let this thing gravity bleed. It's been 24 hours actually. So this is the next day. I'm checking for leaks. That was the whole purpose of letting it gravity bleed. So checking for leaks. I got 2 leaks that I cannot stop. And me personally, this is why I don't personally like using flare nuts. I prefer to use AN. But I loosened them up, tried to reset the fittings, loosen them, you know, because you can't over torque them, and they just won't seal. So I may have over tightened them, or you got to get the tube in there straight. Either way, I can't get the leaks to stop, and it's leaking without pressure and with pressure, so it's just a slow trickle. One of the leaks is up top, coming off the bottom of the proportion valve. The rear sealed up perfect. The front is leaking. It's like rub my finger under there, and there's still, and I'll show you, but there's still a little bit of fluid coming out. And then when I get under the car, the same one. It's the front. It's the bottom line that's going to the passenger side caliper. That fitting is just leaking, and you can just see it dripping down the tube. So I'm going to take these lines off, and I'm just going to do everything with AN. It's still going to be hard lines, but I'm just going to use AN tube nuts instead of flare nuts. They seal better to me. They seem to seal up easier with less tightening, and it just works, because the rear line that I have on there, it's an AN line, and it has yet to leak. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so one of the leaks is coming from, like I say, from this line right here off of the proportion valve. This is where it's running to the front. So let me see if I can show you. You just rub my finger right there. You see that? See that fluid right there? So, and I've tightened it, I've loosened it, tightened it, I tried to reset it, and there's no pressure on it right now. But I had put the pressure bleeder on there just to see if it would hold, and it started dripping out of there. So that's one leak. The back one is fine, these are fine up here, these are fine. The rear one on this is fine. It's just this one right here. I even changed the hard line that's running from the passenger side caliper over to the union, which normally would be the proportion valve on the frame. I had that line brand new. I just had never put it in. All the other lines were replaced except for that one. But this is it right here. This is the old one. because that was one of the fittings that was leaking. So I figured, let me just put the new line on there and see. So I've got a brand new line on there and it's still leaking. So I probably got a bad union, or I stripped the union when I was putting it on. So I've actually already ordered a new union, but I did that early this morning before I came out here to try to see if I can figure it out. I can't get it to stop leaking up here. So I know there's nothing wrong with this. So it's got to be this fitting or this line. So rather than redoing everything with these tube nuts, I'm finna go straight AN. So I'm getting ready to order some adapters that go in here. That's gonna convert this 3.4 or this 3H-24 to a 3AN. And then I'm gonna take this tube nut, cut it off, and put a 3AN tube nut and sleeve on there. And that'll fix that. I'm gonna do it on both of them. And then same thing on the bottom. Let me get under there and show you. All right, so the other leak that I cannot stop, which is weird because everything else is straight, is this fitting right here, the purple. You see the purple tube nut? That's the brand new brake line that I just put on that I've been having for a while. This nut, it was leaked, the old was leaking, so I put this new one on. It seems to be dry now because I wiped it, but it was leaking from here. So I couldn't get that to stop. This one sealed good, this top one sealed good. This one's sealed good, and this is the AN. So this one's fine. I'm probably just gonna leave this one. There's no point in taking this off. I'm getting ready to replace this junction with the 3AN three-way junction, and I'm going ahead and cut this off and put a AN tube sleeve and nut on top and bottom. I know they seal perfect, so I ain't got time for it. I'm ready to get this bled out so that I can test drive it. So we're gonna go ahead and get those parts on order, and I'm gonna cut y'all on. Hold on. All right, y'all, so let me go ahead and get these parts on order. I ain't gonna hold y'all. It's just a personal preference. I like to use 3AN fittings for brake lines. They just seem to seal better. Everything else on the car is AN. I've got AN fuel line. My power steering lines are AN, and you know that's high pressure, so have no issues with leaks. And these are just easier to work with. But I know the tube nuts, double flare is supposed to be standard for brakes. But when you can't get stuff to seal and you just want to get it bled out so you can drive it, you can't blame me. So like I say, I ain't gonna hold y'all. I'm gonna get all these parts on order. I'm gonna cut y'all back on after I do I'm gonna reinstall everything, get the car bled, get the brakes bled. I'll cut y'all back on when I pull the car out of the garage, and we'll go from there. So if you're not already, please hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you'll be notified when I'm dropping a new video. Check me out on TikTok and Instagram at PennyLS1. And until next time, PennyLS1, holla at your boy.
Great Lucas.